Hi, Todd. That's right. Well, earlier I was talking about how we're at this school that's paving the way in terms of education for children with autism. But I want to tell you right now about one girl in particular, Carly Fleischmann. She has autism. Her parents told very early on that their daughter wouldn't be able to progress that far. But something happened when she was 10 years old. She was able to type on a computer that her teeth hurt. I want to introduce her father right now, Arthur Fleischmann. He released a book last week about their story, co-authored, I guess you could say, with Carly. Arthur, I want to welcome you to the show and talk to you. Obviously today, World Autism Awareness Day. Wanted to get your thoughts. What was it like that first time you realized that your daughter was able to communicate with you?
It was a pretty shocking experience. My wife and my other two kids and I were away on spring break, and we had left Carly at home with her therapist. And one of them called us, and the cell service, we were out in Arizona at the Grand Canyon. The cell service was not great, so it kept breaking up. And they told us the story that she was typing, and we couldn't quite hear it, and then we called back and called back. Finally got the whole story, and we were a little bit incredulous, I have to say, and probably didn't fully appreciate the news until we got home and saw it ourselves.
We're here at this school where we're going to be talking to a number of educators, to parents, children with autism. It's a school, so they're walking all over the place. But what's really amazing is the potential within. I think that's your family had that opportunity to really learn that there was a person inside that could communicate, and you just didn't know it at the time. It was thanks to technology that was able to come out.
Well, it was more than technology, Amanda. Carly started with ABA, or Applied Behavior Analysis, very young, at about age 4. And we're one of the fortunate families that were able to provide the kinds of services for Carly that she needed: speech pathology, occupational therapy, ABA. And so she was learning over the years. And she would sort, a couple of letters, but, not much. She could sort like CAT into the word cat. But the typing was spontaneous, and what came out after, the amount of receptive language that she had, was really quite surprising and quite shocking, I think, for all of us.
You have a very smart young woman on your hands. I want to read something that I read in the book. She said, "I was asked if I had to pick another disability other than autism to be, what would it be? My answer to that is, I was once told a blind man wanted to be deaf and a deaf man wanted to be blind, but it's always better to be yourself." So that was from Carly back in 2009. You have a very smart girl on your hands.
Yes, we do. Carly, since she started writing, her first major breakthrough in writing after the first couple of words, she wrote a speech for her bat mitzvah, and she wrote a letter to Ellen DeGeneres to get her to read the speech on video. And after Ellen agreed to do it and that came out, we started to see this flood of insight and expression from her that I think was sort of a second breakthrough, and we certainly didn't expect that. And today she attends a mainstream school. She takes gifted classes. She still struggles with her behavioral issues, her impulse issues, but intellectually she's proven to us that she's quite gifted. Her last IQ test, I think, placed her north of 120, 125.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. In the book, you don't sugarcoat how difficult it is. That you make it very clear that there are major challenges in having an autistic child. But on a day like today, when it is World Autism Awareness Day, what is it you want people to know about children with autism and people with autism in general?
Well, the CDC just released its recent statistics. I'm sure you've seen them. One in 88. Yeah, 1 in 88, 1 in 54 boys. And I think the issue in particular in Canada is legislation and reform of insurance legislation, the Insurance Act. And I guess on a personal message, I'd like parents to know, never give up, because you're not sure what kind of breakthrough your kid will have. And what I'd like the broader audience to know is that as a country, we need to do a hell of a lot more than we're doing right now to bring about reform to get these kids the kind of therapy and support and education they need.
Arthur, I want to thank you for joining us on this day when we're trying to raise awareness about autism. Arthur Fleischmann, the co-author of Carly's Voice. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Todd, I'm going to throw it back to you.
Story we are following today, April the 2nd, is World Autism Awareness Day. All afternoon, throughout the day, we've been broadcasting live from the Beverly School in Toronto. It's a place that helps educate children with special needs. And my co-host Amanda Blitz is standing by live there. Amanda?
Hi, Todd. That's right. I'm actually here with one of the educators. I'm here with Stacey Carroll. She was instrumental, one of the co-leads in helping to get, one of these things we always talk about, tablets, to start having the students use these tablets. If you could talk to us a little bit about how all of this came about and what you're helping the students accomplish with these tablets.
Absolutely. Originally, when the small music devices, the iPod Touches, came out, people were getting them with Mac computers, and one of the teachers brought one in, and we instantly noticed that the kids were interested and engaged in what they were showing on the screen. And from this, we started doing a bit more research about what was available, and there was a few apps designed for children with special needs.
Yeah.
And then in conversation with a professor from the University of Toronto, we kind of built these questions and a research proposal about looking at whether these devices would be helpful in the schools.
So can you show us one of these? So it's a typical, just a typical tablet,
right?
And so the kids play on it. And I should just warn you, Todd, in the background, there's some kids playing. So we are in a school, so you never know what you're going to hear since it's live TV. But how do you know that the kids aren't just hitting at a button? How do you know that it's selective, that they're actually doing what they want to do, that it's targeted?
Well, a lot depends on what you're teaching, the skill you're teaching, and the app you're using to assess. So what we're looking at right here is what the children would use for making a choice for what app they wanted to use on the device.
Okay. So
the way to know if they're being accurate in their choice is if they pick letters, and I switch it to the letters app, are they happy to engage in that app? Is that something that they want to be doing?
That's okay, it's live TV.
And if they're making accurate choices, then when they get the app that they've chosen, they're happy with their choice.
Teaching children, we've just heard a child crying in the background. Teaching children is challenging to begin with. How do you teach autistic children? How do you manage those challenges?
Well, I think as a teacher, you manage them the way you'd manage any classroom environment and any students. There are things that we're very aware of when we're working with these children: the consistency of the presentation, reliability in their structure, routines, things that the children can come to count on and depend on that's happening in their day. We try to provide structure that's clear for them so they know what's happening at the moment, where they're going to next. And we try to keep them engaged using reinforcers, so toys or social rewards that are exciting that the kids will work for.
And what's the most important thing to teach an autistic child? What is the goal at the end of the day?
Well, it depends on what skill we're trying to teach. So we always try to think about how are we building their independence for the future? What skills do we need to teach them, especially in a kindergarten classroom where I teach? What skills do we need to teach them now that will be beneficial for them when they're older? So we work on independence, self-regulation, social skills, and academics.
And I know in addition to these tablets, you use other innovative techniques. What do you do?
We also have interactive whiteboards actually behind me.
What's behind us? Okay.
We have a Promethean board, and right now is our schedule for the day on the board, and we frame it in a 10 frame, which is a mathematics concept of base fives. And so they have an idea of what is happening in the morning and in the afternoon with visual pictures and symbols that help to guide them through their day. And it's something we can keep referring back to.
I just want to quickly ask you, we were talking to Arthur Fleischmann. His daughter at the age of 10 typed into a computer, "My teeth hurt," and they didn't know that she was able to even communicate. Right. You work with these children day in, day out. What's one story that's just absolutely amazed you that you realize they can communicate and tell you what they need?
A little boy, Landon, who had no verbal communication skills. He could clap his hands for yes, and he would get frustrated and upset when he wanted to say no, but no way of a formal way of saying yes or no. And with one of the apps on the device that is just yes and no, he was able to guide us through snack, whereas that had been a difficult time for him because we kept offering him things, and it wasn't ever what he wanted. And with the yes and the no, we were able to show him something, and he said no. And we put it away and handed him something else. Yes, he tapped the yes button and was happy with it, and that was a massive breakthrough moment.
Little steps that mean so much in these children's worlds. I want to thank you so much, Stacey Carroll, who's here with us at the Beverly Public School. I'm going to throw it back to you, Todd. Welcome back to Express. Well, it is April 2nd, and that means today is World Autism Awareness Day, and we have been at the Beverly Public School, a school that's making huge strides in terms of education for autistic children. Last week we were talking about how 1 in 88 children in the States have autism, so definitely a conversation that we need to continue to have, talk about it, and make people aware. I'm here right now with two mothers of two adorable young boys that are in the background. I want to introduce you to them. Amanda Williams, her son Nathan, is in the back in the brown sweater, and beside her is Sarah Patterson, her son Landon, in the gray. 1 in 54, we learned last week, 1 in 54 boys have autism, at least in the States. Amanda, let's start with you. When you first learned that your son had autism, first of all, what did you know about autism, and what went through your mind when you heard that he had it?
I did know a bit because I did suspect at an early age that there was something going on with Nathan because he wasn't developing as he should. And I had done some research into it. But you know what? No matter what research you do, it still doesn't prepare you for the news. We were devastated. We were really devastated, terrified. Every emotion you can probably think of goes through your head because you wonder, okay, we can give it some meaning now. Mm-hmm. Here's what it is. But what does that mean? Mm-hmm. Where do we go from here? And it was really terrifying.
Sarah, you're nodding your head, so I'm guessing that you had similar feelings. What's the biggest challenge of having an autistic child?
I think the biggest challenge, like Amanda's saying, is there's not significant research on autism, so we really didn't know where to go. It's not black and white like with other diagnoses, so it's really trying to learn how your child sees the world, and then trying to figure out how to interact with him. So it's quite difficult.
And you say interacting, and Amanda, if maybe you just move over, you can actually see the boys interacting in the background. Amanda, tell us, what has this school done for your child? How has it helped him?
He is not the same child that he was when he stepped into these doors a year and a half ago. He's gone from a child who clearly had some real issues with self-regulation and wasn't comfortable in his body, and was also would get very just upset. I mean, mm-hmm. Loud noises, clapping would throw him off. He's engaged now. He's interacting. He's participating and not just observing. He participates in every single classroom activity now, which is just amazing.
I want to thank both of you, but before we go, I want to throw this to another mother who has an autistic son, a 12-year-old son. I want to join into the conversation, Suzanne Lanthier. She is in Ottawa. She's the executive director of Autism Speaks Canada. Suzanne, tell us a little bit about your organization. What is Autism Speaks Canada?
Largest private funder of autism research all over the world. We basically raise money and we give out money to autism research here in Canada and all over the world, and we give out community grants up to $25,000 to agencies and organizations that work with kids, youth, and adults with autism and their families.
Autism, usually the big focus is education and healthcare, which are usually provincial matters. So what's the greatest challenge in terms of getting equal access across the country for autistic children, specifically when it comes to education and healthcare?
Well, the greatest challenge is that the incidence rates are going up and up and up. I mean, you talked a little bit before about 1 in 88, 1 in 54. Autism doesn't discriminate by geography. Those numbers are as true as they are in Canada as they are in the US. And the wait lists are already so long for services and supports across the country. In Ontario, as an example, we have many kids that are arriving for their very first day of kindergarten without having 1 minute of treatment or therapy. And then it's just left into the hands of the education system. So the system itself is just setting itself up for failure, and it's just not addressing the needs of our families as it should be.
You're in Ottawa to help raise awareness on this Autism Awareness Day. Tell us some of the things that are happening on the Hill.
Well, we started off this morning with a really great meeting with HRSDC Canada talking about vocational issues. You know, as much as there is, little as there is out there for kids, there's even less for adults in terms of job opportunities. There's some statements being made in the House by some of the MPs, by Mike Lake, and we're finishing off the day. The Speaker of the House is hosting a reception where we hope to have as many MPs and senators attend, meet some of the families that are living with autism every single day and learning a little bit more about what it is.
We've been talking a lot about children with autism, but I'm curious, what about once these children get older? Is there enough support in the system for adults with autism?
Well, to be quite blunt, there's not. There really isn't. As I said, we struggle with the incredible wait list for services for our very young kids, but really, we spend the bulk of our lives as adults, and as much as you'd like to think that we were set up to provide for our adults, there's really not. You don't grow out of autism. Kids with autism grow up to be adults with autism, and very few can live independently on their own, very, very few. So with the incidence rates going up the way they are, this is going to become a public health crisis pretty quickly when we're looking at the numbers of kids that are growing up to be adults and the lack of supports, job opportunities, housing available to them. We really have to start looking at this seriously.
Suzanne, I just want to quickly ask you, Alberta MP Mike Lake, he has been the political face of autism in Ottawa. That's because he has a son with autism. How has that helped in terms of pushing the political agenda forward when it comes to, or the federal agenda when it comes to autism?
Well, the way that autism has no boundaries geographically, it also has no boundaries when it comes to political parties. And Mike, I know, would be the very first to admit that he, along with Senator Jim Munson, MPs like Glenn Thibeault, have really helped to open up the doors where the doors can be open. Mike has been really quite a champion of autism and autism awareness on the Hill, and he really has been fantastic in opening up doors to the Public Health Agency of Canada. We've just started a national surveillance committee to look at the actual numbers in Canada, how we count and how we track our individuals with autism across Canada. The meeting like this morning with HRSDC, when we're looking at adult vocational issues, these are all doors that Mike and his colleagues have opened up. So we keep autism front and center at the federal level.
And hopefully we're doing that today by having the dialogue. I want to thank Suzanne Lanthier, the Executive Director of Autism Speaks Canada. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Another story that we are following today. Today is Autism Awareness Day. Amanda Blitz, my co-host, is standing by at a high school in Toronto covering this story for us. Hey, Amanda.
It's a public school, an elementary school. It's called the Beverly School. That's right. And we've been talking about World Autism Awareness all day, but we haven't talked about what autism is. And for that, I'm joined with Dr. Jessica Bryan. She is the psychologist with Bloorview Research Institute and co-director at Autism Researcher. Co-director at Autism Research Unit at Sick Kids Hospital. Doctor, thanks for joining us. So could you please, first of all, tell us what exactly is autism?
Mental disorders, so they emerge very early in childhood, and they're thought to be disorders of probably of brain development, but they affect areas of social communication, play, and behavior, essentially.
Last week we learned from the CDC report that 1 in 88 children in the States have autism. That number had increased something like 23% from the last time the report came out, and 78% from the time before that. Why are those numbers going up?
I mean, it's an excellent question. When the report just came out last week, and we're all still a little bit shocked about how high the numbers are, I think just one thing to point out is that there's a lot of variability in terms of the particular areas that have been studied. So while that's sort of the national average, there is a lot of range depending on where the data are collected. We're still honestly trying to understand why the rates are so high. And for years we sort of have felt that one of the main explanations is that the definition of autism has broadened over the years. So in the definition of autism, we now include children who are more mildly affected but still have challenges with social communication and restricted interests. But researchers also are feeling like there are questions that are still left unanswered about why the prevalence seems to be going up at such a rate.
There's also a lot of myths connected to autism, particularly about vaccinations. What can you tell us about that?
So it's a great question. A lot of families are very scared about the vaccinations because of those myths. There is actually lots of very strong research evidence out there that dispels that myth, and that sort of shows that there really is not a link between particularly the MMR vaccine, which has gotten most of the press, and autism. And there are research studies with tens of thousands of children in Europe that sort of rule out vaccines as being a possible cause for autism.
And as far as funding for treatment, is it the same across the country? What areas specifically needs assistance?
So most people would agree that the most evidence-based intervention in autism is something called behavioral intervention, which is a very broad term, but it includes sort of, as I say, behavioral interventions, which are sort of educational types of interventions. In terms of whether they differ across Canada, every province has its own sort of rules and regulations about which particular children on the autism spectrum qualify for treatment and which types of behavioral interventions or which types of interventions will be funded. In Ontario, children with autism are funded for applied behavior analysis, but there isn't enough funding right now to support all children who have an autism spectrum diagnosis, so it continues to be a real challenge.
Dr. Jessica Bryan, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
And now I want to bring into this dialogue a mother, somebody who has a child with autism. I want to tell you about Emily Buchek. She was thrown out of school. She's an autistic child. She is developmentally delayed and can't speak, and she was thrown out of school because she was deemed detrimental to the physical and mental well-being of students in the school. Her mom, Christina, now joins us. Christina, thanks for talking with us. So tell us, you are fighting for your child's rights. Tell us a little bit about your child's story.
Emily was issued a notice of refusal to admit last year. So at this time last year, in fact, we were told that she could not return to school. She was actually in a special needs school, in a special needs class. So you can imagine as a parent, the very programs and schools that are designed to help a child like my daughter were in essence saying that she couldn't attend. So the problem here, to be honest, is a lack of sufficient training and expertise in knowing how to deal effectively with a child like my daughter. And the difference between last year and this year is night and day. This year, Emily is doing extremely well. She is in a program where we ensured that and fought that she would get a very well-trained and experienced one-on-one assistant. And most importantly is that they work to bond effectively with the child. Emily is now 15. She's in a school where all the students are special needs. I would say the large percentage of them cannot speak. And Emily still does have this same behavior. She does need a one-on-one assistant. But if they're appropriately trained and experienced, they know how to spot the child's triggers, and they focus more preventatively on helping the child cope and using ways of de-stressing a child. What you're seeing right now is actually a brain gym activity being done by her teacher, Linda Donan. And what they're doing is practicing having my daughter cross the median line, which actually is helping with her brain function.
Christina, sorry to interrupt, but I have to ask, because today is World Autism Awareness Day, what is it that you want people to know? What do you want to make them aware about autism, especially both for the education system and in general about autistic people?
I would say that, well, as we've just heard, the incidence of autism, clearly 1 in 88, that's considered epidemic proportions. So autism is here, it's here to stay, and we've got to become very much more effective in handling it. Nowadays, you find people everywhere who have either a family member who is autistic or know someone who is autistic. So there is more knowledge being made available in the public. A huge problem, of course, remains that there's cutbacks on funding, there's insufficient funding. For example, for respite services, the funding has not increased in over 6 years, and yet every year approximately 500 more families are applying to obtain some of these funds. You also have wait lists to get into a lot of the programs, wait lists for respite in residential services. We've heard recently the Ontario government intends to close Thistletown. Well, Thistletown is a facility that is a last resort for people who in fact have been unacceptable in other agencies. So they're going to look at closing this last resort location, and often the people who are there have been kicked out of the other agencies because they couldn't handle them effectively. So we have a lot ahead of us, but I would say what's extremely interesting to me is the fact that the current Prime Minister in the United Kingdom David Cameron recently wrote an article about what he has learned from his disabled child, of what he wants to see changed in government, and his article is dead on.
Interesting.
He sees it from a parent's perspective. He really understands it. He's been on our side of the table in terms of trying to deal with services and getting what we need for our kids. And when parents read that article, they are, really moved to think that here is someone who really gets it and is in a position to potentially have powerful, positive influence.
Christina, thank you for sharing that. I actually didn't know that he had written that piece. I'm going to look into it. Really appreciate it. Christina Buchek, thank you.
You're welcome.
Todd, back to you.